All right, we need to talk about storing your clay. If you get to a point where you want to stop for a while, maybe it's a weekend, you got to go to your next class, you have to wrap your clay so that when you come back the next day, it's not a dried out, unworkable piece. It will get to probably close to being late leather hard, maybe even bone dry by the time you're ready to come back and work on it, if you leave it out. So don't leave it out. When you're working at the table, and you have a nice piece of clay, you always want to wrap it, protect it from drying out, but you also want to protect the pieces that you're working on. So in the cabinet marked boards and plastic in our room, you saw that in the room tour, there's a bunch of boards and plastic. I know, shocker. So you'll grab a board, and that's important. You don't need a board this big for a small pinch cup. That's a waste of space. Somebody else could use that. Find a board that's the right size for the piece that you're working on. That's a lot nicer. Now, if you really want to be careful, look at this board and you can see somebody did a really bad job of cleaning it off. That can be a factor, but really you're not going to make contact with that with your clay. The wood board will suck the moisture out of your piece just like the concrete tables that we have here. So if you put it on this board and just wrap it, you'll come back tomorrow and the foot of your piece will be completely dried because this took the moisture out of it. So we want to make sure that we wrap the board and then wrap our piece and put it on top of it, or do what I'm going to show you today, and that's just wrap your whole piece and then set it on the board so that you can place it inside of our storage cabinet. Okay? So a piece like this, I had a smaller piece of plastic. Always check your plastic and make sure that there's not a bunch of holes in it. Now, if you have a hole in the side of your piece, it doesn't matter how tightly you wrap it, it's going to get exposed to air, and wherever that hole is on here, you're going to have a dry spot on your clay. All right, so that's no good. Make sure that there's not crumbs of clay stuck in here. Just shake it out a little bit, and this looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do is lay it down, place my piece inside, and this is important. I see a lot of people take their spray bottle and soak, absolutely soak their piece. Don't do it. All that water is going to run down the sides and saturate this poor little foot, and when you come back tomorrow, it'll be smushed up underneath your piece because it'll get crushed. This will turn into slip, and then this will stay clay. The other thing I see is that the water pools inside here, weakens the form right here, and then you poke a hole through it the next day. All you want to do is make sure that the water content stays even, so just a couple of mists. If it's a long weekend, give it an extra one. And then we're going to wrap it underneath. Make sure that the plastic makes contact with the clay. Don't worry, it's not going to ruin anything. The clay, you stamped it nice. It's not going to wreck it. And then if you got a little tail like that, you don't want the tail to unwind. So what I will do is just kind of tuck that underneath. Okay? And that's a really nicely wrapped piece. There's no air getting in there. And you can safely walk away from this piece for a week, maybe even 2 weeks. And when you come back, if you did a good job, that clay will be